pass, and despite the boy's rough treatment, which leaves the chicken drained, he finally seems to understand Nana's power. She can fix up broken bits and mend fractures, though bringing a chicken back from the dead isn't in her playbook. Once the chicken has served its purpose, the boy tells his knight to take it to the kitchen, leaving the girl with tears in her eyes and a pout for how rough the prince was with the chicken. But he assures her it was necessary. Before long, a feast of delicious food appears before them. Nana seems to forget her chicken grievance as she eagerly eyes the cooked bird laid out before her. After their little feast, the little girl heads off, waving her hand one last time, and our hero waves back in response. Meanwhile, Anna is curious why our hero is not keeping her in the palace, knowing she's a witch too. He reminds her that she still has a family who doesn't know about her powers yet. But Anna worries it's only a matter of time before her parents find out and exile her. He agrees, but reassures her that as long as her abilities remain secret, she should cherish the time with her parents. He then asks if she misses her father. She sadly shakes her head with a no, but our hero can empathize with the loneliness she feels. To ease her mind, he promises that Nana will come daily to practice magic with her so she won't feel alone, and further vows to give both girls the ordinary life they desire. And he means every word. Back in the castle, our hero's been feeling kind of boring ever since Carl Van Bate took charge of the wall construction. He's taken to having a tea party every afternoon while teaching the girls how to work their magic. Every now and then, he checks on the city wall's progress at the foot of the North Slope Mountain, always impressed by how much better it's going than expected. But then, the consultant shows up with some not-so-great news. He points out that hiring all those craftsmen and laborers has been super expensive, and all that cash is coming straight out of our hero's pocket. At this rate, the steward's worried they won't have enough money left by spring. Our hero officially starts to panic, realizing that he is freaking screwed. A moment later, while he's brainstorming ideas to get out of this financial mess, the old man finds it strange how much the prince has changed lately, as if he's become a completely different person. Back in the day, this guy knew nothing but the pleasures of life, and the only reason this old man sticks with our hero is because the king has promised him the position of Minister of Finance once the throne competition is over. When he first rolled into Border Town, he wasn't planning on running the place, nor was he gunning for the throne. He let down all the nobles and dumped all the responsibilities on the old man's lap. But ever since he rescued that witch, the prince has done a complete 180. The prince is now handling things with more thought and dealing with stuff like it's his second nature. He even talks to the old man in this grown-up tone that's seriously creeping the old dude out, making him wonder if the prince got possessed by a devil or something. But the old man brushes it off, saying if the prince were really possessed, he wouldn't have casually snagged that godforsaken retribution locket. Cut to the scene back at the port in Border Town. Two nobles and this redhead guy, who looks like some ambassador, are shooting the breeze. The guy in glasses reminds the ambassador they last swung by a year ago and gripes that the town's still a desolate pile of rocks. The redhead pipes up, correcting him that it was just 6 months back. He mentions how every season Duke randomly sends someone new here. He remembers visiting last summer, when besides rocks, there were all kinds of fancy furs floating around. When he is about to spill something juicy, he decides to keep it under wraps for some reason, and instead, he focuses on Border Town's potential. He suggests that although it's currently just a fortress outpost, if they set up a solid defense line here, all the land between Border Town and the fortress could be put to good use. Suddenly, the guy in glasses freaks out, pointing out that the stockpile is empty and Border Town was supposed to have their ore ready today. Looks like these visitors are here to collect ore before the demon months hit, offering shelter for the Border Town in return. The ambassador sighs and decides to take the problem to our hero. They ride back on their horses. The guy with purple hair wonders if Border Town found a new trade partner, or already sold their ore to Willowtown or Fallen Dragon Ridge. He's pretty sure it's the fourth prince's doing, who is our hero by the way. The redhead thinks hard, pondering if the prince has already set up deals with towns further down on the Redwater River. If so, they've lost yet another bargaining chip. He worries that if they try the same monopoly play as before, they're not likely to succeed since the fourth prince already has other trade partners to take their ore to sell. Once they get to the castle, they're greeted with this incredible feast. The ambassador, not sure how to handle chopsticks, glances over at our hero and awkwardly tries to eat the same way, struggling to even pick up his food. As his food flies off the chopsticks, the ambassador feels embarrassed, while the prince casually mentions that these sticks are easier and cheaper to make compared to forks, and once he introduces them to his town people, no one will have to worry about getting sick from eating with their bare hands. As the sun starts to dip, casting a golden glow over the castle, the prince is about to enjoy desserts after their impromptu dinner. Finally, the ambassador brings up the reason for their visit, pointing out that they came to collect ore as usual, only to find none at the dockyard this time. That's when our hero drops the bad news. There was a landslide at the North Slope Mountain recently. They've been trying to clear the rubble and resume production this month, but it looks like the mine won't reopen until sometime next year. The ambassador then asks about the production from previous months. Our hero simply shrugs and says it was lower than usual, barely enough to keep everyone fed. He adds that even if they manage to scrape together enough ore, it won't buy more than 2 months' worth of wheat. So, he suggests they totally revamp their deal. The ambassador looks worried and tries to reel our hero back in, apologizing for past screw-ups. He proposes that the 6 noble families of the fortress pool together to lend enough food for 1 month, promising they'll pay it back next year. But our hero isn't having it. He flat out says if they sell the ore to Willowtown, they won't owe anyone a thing. And here's the twist. The Willowtown is offering gold dragon coins in exchange for their ore. Plus, they're ready to trade wheat, cheese, bread, and honey, all at fair prices. Anything you can buy with gold dragons, they're happy to sell. Compared to dealing with Longsong Fortress, this new setup makes way more sense for the border town. Our hero asks the ambassador another question, pointing out if he even has enough influence to make that decision on behalf of the other families willing to lend 1 month's worth of food. Our hero quickly catches on that the ambassador is a member of the honeysuckle family, with this emblem being a dead giveaway. The prince acknowledges that the ambassador might be from one of the 6 families, but questions whether he can really convince Duke Ryan and the others to agree, or if he can guarantee it. Looks like our hero is hitting the nail on the head as the ambassador's face turns sour like a lemon. The scene flashes back to when the ambassador tried to reason with his father, arguing that the new ruler of Border Town, the 4th prince, definitely wouldn't agree to exchange his minerals and gemstones for some food and bread. He suggested buying from them at 30% under the market price, as they could still make substantial profits. But this bald machismo of a father confidently brushed off the concern, saying the sloth-like 4th prince would never handle Border Town's trade affairs. He believed they could continue swindling Border Town's resources for mere bread and shelter. In the present moment, the redhead ambassador, after thinking it through, realizes our hero has a point. He couldn't even convince his own father, but still wants to try his best. So, the redhead takes the plunge and offers to buy the ore and gemstones from Border Town at 30% below market price. The ambassador is confident his offer must be higher than what Willowtown is proposing. He emphasizes that Willowtown is far away, making it difficult to seek shelter during the demon months, which is why Longsong Fortress is the best option for shelter. The ambassador starts to mention the bad roads leading to Willowtown, but stops himself mid-sentence. Curious, our hero urges him to finish his thought. The redhead points out the dangers that could easily spring up along that road. The ambassador realizes he may have inadvertently issued a threat to a prince and starts panicking internally. Our hero just chuckles, dispelling the redhead's confusion, and explains that he never intended to seek refuge in Willowtown in the first place. That bombshell catches the redhead off guard, and he really throws the ambassador for a loop by making it crystal clear he's not going anywhere, not to Longsong Fortress or anywhere else. The prince goes on to explain that Border Town isn't just going to be some outpost anymore, it's going to be a full-fledged part of Grey Castle Kingdom. He's pumped to show off the brand new city walls stretching all the way from the North Slope Mountains to the Redwater River. The redhead's jaw practically hits the floor, and he double-checks with our hero if he heard right. The boy nods firmly, stressing they're putting up this wall right here in Border Town to keep those demons at bay. The redhead's mind flashes back to some fancy banquet where nobles were roasting our prince for starting construction projects just as the demon months were rolling in. Everyone had a good laugh at what they thought was our hero's cluelessness. At first, the redhead figured it was all just rich folks teasing each other for kicks. He never imagined our prince was serious about this whole wall thing. What's really mind-boggling is how our prince, known for chasing pleasure and not much else, is suddenly taking charge of something so massive. The redhead, freaking out a bit, assures our hero that once he's back at the fortress, he'll try to hash things out with the 6 noble families, hoping it'll all swing in our hero's favor. Now it's smack dab in the middle of the night, and our hero's feeling bummed that nightlife in this backwoods world is non-existent. People here hit the bed early unless they're up for clapping some cheeks. Even though he could easily bring someone over to liven up his night, he's got morals and won't stoop to anything sketchy. Out of the blue, someone sneaks up on our hero from behind. He spins around to find a woman in a robe singing his praises for handling the ambassador with brains, hinting the prince isn't all about the party life after all. Turns out she's an assassin, but our hero doesn't waste a second before trying to dash out of the room. The woman throws her dagger, stopping him in his tracks, and reassures him she's only here to chat, telling him to chill out and not panic. The boy stops dead in his tracks, especially with that sharp dagger staring him down, and asks the lady who she might be. She drops the bomb that she has no name but goes by Nightingale, a nickname her sisters gave her for some weird reason. She's surprisingly grateful for our hero's recent care towards witches. When the prince takes a closer look, he notices an emblem similar to the one the old man showed him, which belonged to the Witch Association. The lady gives him props again for his sharp mind, while our hero presses on, asking if she's here for Anna. He admits he has no clue how she knows about Anna, but still reassures the women that she is still alive. The lady nods, saying she already knows that much, and points out that even if she was killed, the Witch Association wouldn't appreciate meddling in politics by killing a prince just because a witch was killed. But she's quick to warn him not to underestimate them. The boy reassures her once again that Anna's doing well. The woman casually replies she already knows, and she's also aware of the other girl named Nana. Then she gives him the creeps by casually dropping that she's been spying on him for the past 2 weeks, keeping tabs on his every move, which really gets under our hero's skin. Because let's face it, this idiot did not have a single clue if he is being spied on. She gestures for our hero to come closer, assuring him she has no intention of harming him. Reluctantly, the boy sits before her, sensing no ill intentions. But then the woman gets uncomfortably close. Noting he's different because he shows no fear towards her or any other witches, she inches even closer. The prince steps back, half-jokingly telling her to keep it PG, not wanting YouTube to slap age restrictions on the video. The lady finally withdraws her hand and gets straight to the point that she's here to take Anna and Nana. The boy immediately refuses without hesitation, insisting they're happy here and safe under his watch. But the lady argues they'd be safer with the Witch Association, where they will be treated like family by every member. But the boy keeps pressing on, noting that the Witch Association doesn't even have a fixed place to call home. He mentions how his soldiers stumbled upon one of their camps hidden in a forest about a month ago, and the tracks led north. However, in that direction, there are only endless mountains. The lady defends their choice, saying they're based in desolate mountains to stay safe from outsiders and dangers. But the boy isn't convinced, bringing up the lack of basic necessities there that would make life difficult for the girls. He also remembers what the old man told him about the association's goal, which is to gather all witches and find the holy mountains, where witches can truly be safe. He asks if the lady has the same goal in mind. Cryptically, the lady responds that she can't give him an answer. This annoys the boy further, as he insists he won't let the girls live in such barren lands where only demons could thrive. That's when a light bulb goes off in his head, catching the lady totally off guard with what he says next. He invites the entire Witch Association to come to Border Town for the winter, looking all pleased with himself as he tries to convince her it won't be much trouble to wait until winter passes. The lady reminds him that while the prince may not fear witches, the townsfolk will likely freak out. Plus, the church will pounce the moment they catch wind that witches are staying in Border Town. But our hero is adamant, and wants to show everyone that witches aren't evil, especially if they help the town get through the tough months of demons. The lady then mentions another reason why she wants to take both ladies, especially Anna, who's almost the coming of age. Of course, this point sails right over our hero's head until the lady confirms he heard right. She explains that most witches awaken around the time of the months of demons, or when the gates of hell supposedly open. Basically, coming of age is a witch's final stage, and a woman who hasn't awakened her powers by 18 won't ever become a witch. Once a witch comes of age, during the months of demons, demons take over their minds, causing unbearable agony. It feels like something's trying to burst out of their bodies, straining every vein and tendon to the limit. If they survive, they'll recover after 4 or 5 days, but for those who don't, it's a brutal death. That's why witches are seen as the devil's spawn, and their horrific deaths, mixed with church propaganda, make people think they're possessed by demons. The boy then asks what happens once they hit adulthood, to which the lady explains that their powers will stabilize and often get even stronger, with some even picking up new abilities. Our hero questions how valid this all is. Old records claim that witches find eternal peace on the holy mountain and are spared from demons consuming their minds. The lady admits there's nothing concrete about the holy mountain, it's only mentioned in texts. Taking her to headquarters might slightly increase her chances of survival. If witches could live freely without being hunted, the demonic attacks would be way less severe. The boy realizes that Anna and Nana are key players in his big plan, but he's worried about putting them in danger if he goes ahead with it. He quickly agrees to let the lady take Anna if she's up for it. As for Nana, he decides to wait until tomorrow to talk to her about it. The witch is delighted to hear our hero's wise decision, but when he summons Anna and asks her about it, she immediately declines, saying she's not going anywhere. This shocks both adults, and the woman tries to reason with her, explaining that she can sense the demonic energy building within her as she nears maturity. She reminds Anna about the whole puberty talk she had with our hero earlier. Anna then reminds our hero how he promised her an ordinary life, but she couldn't care less about anything because all she wants is to stay by the prince's side. She's confident that the demonic energy won't stand a chance against her, and she's determined to survive the months of demons and conquer her puberty. The woman sighs and decides to give up on convincing Anna, but she makes it clear she'll stick around to watch over her until she experiences her maturity. She thinks Anna is just a naive kid who doesn't understand the dangers. Of course, our hero doesn't like the idea of her keeping a watchful eye on him for the rest of the winter. Anyway, Before the woman disappears, she comes face to face with Anna and talks about the hardships she's seen and the friends she's lost, vowing not to let Anna suffer the same fate. With those final words, she bids farewell to our girl and vanishes into thin air without a trace. Seeing her abilities totally blows our hero's mind. He's amazed by her assassination skills. Once they're alone, the boy gives Anna a reassuring pat on the head and tells her to hit the hay as it's already pretty late for her. The next day rolls around and our hero greets the citizens of the town with a cheery, "Good morning." He gathers everyone for an important announcement. He explains that almost 4 days ago, the ambassador from Longsong Fortress visited him to collect the already mined ore. However, everyone should remember that a month ago, the northern mining quarry collapsed, and production hasn't resumed since then. The community immediately panics because the last output was only half of the average, and they had to endure starvation and a lot of crap from Longsong. He then exposes the Longsong Fortress hideous act, saying he tried to get a loan and supplies from the ambassador, but the guy shut him down hard, just like 2 years back. People freak out again, fearing starvation once again. He reminds them of the time when food was so scarce that many lost family, siblings, kids, and more. He asks them how long they want this cycle of loss to continue. The crowd starts begging him to save them, and he nods positively, swearing he won't let his people fall into that pit again. After a dramatic cough, he drops the bomb, which is that 2 months' worth of mining would have bought them enough food for almost a year, but those Longsong jerks never played fair. The whole crowd starts to see that Longsong Fortress for taking advantage like that. So, our hero explains that he traded his stones for a bunch of food from Willowtown, enough to keep everyone fed through the winter. Just as folks start celebrating and feeling relieved, he puts a pause on the party vibes. He reminds them that cutting ties with Longsong means they're committing to sticking it out in Bordertown for the winter. That news sets off another round of worry, but the boy quickly shifts gears, reminding everyone about the wall they're building. He boosts their spirits by saying demons aren't any tougher than the beasts in the forest and won't be able to scale their wall no matter how hard they try. Then he gives them a choice: either seek refuge to starve in Longsong Fortress or stand with him to protect their families. He asks if anyone's up for joining him on the wall to fend off monsters, promising good silver coin rewards for those who help out. And if the worst happens and someone doesn't make it, he pledges 5 golden coins to their family. The whole crowd gets fired up by his speech, and suddenly everyone's geared up to face whatever comes their way with determination and grit. The atmosphere in Longsong Fortress is lively with laughter echoing through the entire castle. People seem to be having a good time poking fun at our hero's decision to stay put in Bordertown and build a wall. One guy, sporting a solid mustache, jokes that our hero would probably stack some rough rocks together, throw in some dirt and mud, and call it a day. He is sure that eventually our hero will come running back to Longsong, and they can further exploit him when he's desperate. However, the leader of this committee doesn't seem to dismiss our hero as lightly as the others. He asks for the ambassador's take on the matter. The redhead, bewildered at first, mentions that their original plan was to maintain their monopoly as usual, and as long as they purchase ores from our hero at 3 times lower than the market price, it's a good deal for them. But our hero has other plans. He's not just looking to sell the ores to only Longsong Fortresses. He's willing to cut the price of ores by half, aims to stimulate higher demand and thereby increase overall production capacity and revenue for Bordertown. This approach is a strategic move to foster economic growth and sustainability in the region, and because of that price cut in ores, the Longsong Fortress will be able to earn much more than they earned in the past. Additionally, he intends to manufacture iron tools, which he believes will fly off the shelves no matter where they were sold, making an additional stream of income. However, those aren't the only things to think about. If our hero can hold off the demons at Bordertown, it's good news for Longsong too. They won't have to keep dealing with those pesky beasts every year. Plus, the throne squabble is only 5 years long, so if Bordertown flourishes afterward, Longsong could end up with the kingdom's 3rd biggest slice of land. The red-headed guy suggests that Longsong should pitch in to help our prince build the wall and defend Bordertown. He figures it'll pay off in the end. The old man agrees with the redhead's practical sense but calls it typical merchant thinking. To this white-haired fellow, it's not about whether Bordertown succeeds or fails. He just doesn't want to share his turf with anyone, prince or not. The next day, Chief Knight's face was priceless when he laid eyes on the contraption our prince had been tinkering with. True to form, he showered all the credit on Anna, who'd helped with welding the metal parts. The prince couldn't contain his excitement over his latest creation, which is a steam engine. He hugged his beautiful invention tightly, seeing it as the first step towards ushering humanity into an industrial revolution fueled by a new energy source. 5 minutes later, the knight still looked baffled, trying to wrap his head around how the machine worked. When Anna fired up the furnace below, the cogs and gears started turning, and soon enough, the wheel began spinning faster and faster. Watching the mechanical parts move left, the knight completely awestruck. It was his first glimpse of the natural power the prince had been talking about, which is a force equal to the strength of 10 knights combined. And this innovation promised to save a ton of manual and animal labor. Training a knight took 15 years, but building a contraption like this stove only took 3 days. The knight found it fascinating that it didn't need feeding, didn't care about weather, and was impervious to arrows or blades. Seeing this, he started to wonder if traditional knights were even necessary in a world with such machines. The boy was totally stoked to see his farming game jump forward by a few hundred years. Later that night, our hero swung open his bedroom door and found the assassin lady once again, deep into studying the blueprints he'd made. He gave her a bit of a hard time for spying on him and just waltzing into his room unannounced. But the lady just chuckles, pointing out how the fourth prince was rumored to be a total flop with a lousy personality, yet his inventions were master class. She wondered if those blueprints were for the stove he'd cooked up recently, but the boy was feeling kinda down and out, watching her toy with his secret plans he had kept locked up tight in his office. Seeing her impressed, he attributes all of the credit to Anna once again, and explains that the machine could be used for anything needing a lot of muscle, like getting stuff around or making stuff. The lady smiles upon hearing this, and lets our boy know that she'll be keeping these blueprints, since there are many witches in the association who can make good use of firepower. As she tucks them into her robe, the idiot's eyes accidentally drift over her cleavage, and he stumbles over his words in embarrassment, telling her he didn't give permission for that. She just smirks and says she already has something as payment, tossing a document at him she pulled from her chest. The boy eagerly grabbed it and tore it open, only to find it addressed to his servant Tyre. The letter sternly instructed Tyre not to repeat the same mistake, and was ordered to eliminate the prince during the months of demons. The boy's mind races, recalling how Prince Roland used to exploit her whenever he could, and our hero feels deeply unsettled by these memories. The woman then tells him she snatched it from one of the pigeons, mentioning there wasn't any signature on the letter, but she thinks it might have been sent by one of his siblings. So she asks if he's cool with her digging deeper to find out who's behind these orders. He gives her the go-ahead, and she strikes a respectful pose, saying she'll be taking the blueprints as payment. The next day, he's still hung up on last night's letter when the knight shows up. The guy drops to his knees and spills that Tyre kicked the bucket last night. Apparently, she took a tumble from her balcony, and there weren't any signs of a struggle, and the guards swear they didn't see anyone come or go. The boy's visibly bummed out and tells the knight to have the head servant handle the situation. Once the knight had left the room, our hero called the assassin lady back, and she showed up right on cue. She quickly spilled the beans that the servant had killed herself the moment she laid eyes on her. The boy couldn't hide his disappointment, muttering that he figured she'd know how to handle such things. The lady countered, saying she had tied Tyre with ropes up tight, but the wily servant had stashed poison in her fake tooth, and once she died out of poison, she threw the servant from the balcony to make it look like an accident. Even though her interrogation had hit a dead end, she whipped out another note from her cleavage and revealed that this is what she found out in her apartment. With a sly grin, she points out that the sender called Tyre Big Sister and mentioned a seaside view a lot. She hints that there's a chance the third princess from Clearwater Port might be the one pulling the strings. She suspects Princess Garcia Wimbledon might be holding Tyre's family hostage, using her as a pawn to eliminate our hero. Judging by how Tyre chose to end things, it seems she was trained for years before being assigned here. The boy feels deeply disappointed that his own siblings are so quick to eliminate each other for the crown. Suddenly, the woman leans in close to our hero's ear and whispers that she has to go because someone is coming their way. The boy blushes a bit, maybe catching a peek of her assets straining against her shirt, before she disappears into thin air. Just then, the old consul shows up with some good news. A bunch of folks have volunteered to take on the demons during the demon months. This puts a big grin on the prince's face, and he decides he needs to go see it all for himself. But before heading there, the old man genuinely asks if he really intends to have these regular folks go up against the demons. Once outside, our hero also feels bummed out and sees that the consultant's worries were legit. These people don't look like fighters. They seem more like street thugs. On the other hand, the knight is all gung-ho about how he picked these folks based on what our hero wanted. But looking at these poor souls with their frail bodies, it's clear this knight totally missed the mark. The prince just facepalms himself, and it seems like our hero expected a lot from people who barely scrape by. Even the consultant suggests considering other recruits instead of these commoners. But our hero seems dead set on using them anyway, as if he has cracked the code already. Our hero believes that it's all about people power when it comes to building a strong army, whether they're wielding medieval swords or modern tech. The knight suggests starting sword training tomorrow, but our hero waves it off. Instead, he tells the knight to group them up, then hits the jogging trail. He also tells him to bring that iron axe hunter from earlier in tow, and suggests the knight to sit tight and enjoy the show. By noon, the hunters joined our hero's cause. But the knight's not exactly thrilled with this new training approach. Coming from a family steeped in warrior tradition, he doesn't get why these folks are getting rewarded with eggs just for standing around all morning, especially since eggs are pricey as hell. Once again, our hero tells him to chill and enjoy the show. Like, he already knows you can't whip up a top-notch army in a few medieval months, and he is not after muscle-bound brutes who can tear enemies apart with their bare hands. All he wants is disciplined soldiers. To get results fast, he's using military techniques he learned back in college. He's seen how quickly people can unify under this method, and he is betting these folks will follow suit. After a while, the carriages show up and folks eagerly line up for their eggs. People still can't quite wrap their heads around the idea of eggs as rewards. The knight clangs his plate loudly to get everyone's attention and orders them to form 4 lines. He lays down the law that food will be handed out in order, and stragglers would wait till the end. There's a mix of nerves and compliance as everyone queues up. Meanwhile, the knight is still puzzled why the prince is bothering to teach these kinds of basic things to these people. Suddenly, the crowd erupts into murmurs and talks, chanting Iron Axe, who seems to have quite the reputation around these parts. The prince declares a break after lunch, followed by a visit to the guard barracks in town. Iron Axe is appointed as their captain, tasked with teaching everyone how to set up tents. As soon as our hero finishes speaking, there's a buzz of gossip about the prince putting someone like Iron Axe in charge of their platoon. To calm everyone down, he reminds them that Iron Axe isn't local, just like the witches that do not belong to Grey Castle. Our hero stresses that in Border Town, everyone's treated equally, no matter where they're from. As long as they're not criminals, they're welcome here. The prince unrolls a ridiculously long sheet, longer than your average grocery list, and tells the chief knight to pay more attention to these rules than to who gets to be captain. He stresses that everyone needs to memorize and stick to these rules if they want their usual egg during meals. The chief knight scratches his head at the idea of visiting Teacher Carl after dinner, wondering aloud how reading and writing will help fight demons. But the prince brushes off his concerns and says a well-educated army is always more effective. According to him, history has proven this point many times. Next up, we're at City Hall in Border Town. There we see our hero stagger out of his room, still half asleep. Suddenly, Nightingale pops up out of nowhere and teases him about his newfound habit of sleeping a lot lately. It seems she has also helped herself by eating some of our hero's breakfast. Of course, the boy does not seem to be really happy to see her eating his breakfast and coming inside without his permission. He then starts wondering aloud if she was never taught to be more subtle around royalty. As he takes his seat, the lady adopts a respectful posture and asks if she's being polite enough. Then she casually mentions she knows the prince isn't into all that fancy, unnecessary politeness. The boy finds himself startled to see that she seems to know what he exactly prefers. He sighs and tells her to just eat the whole breakfast so he can at least ask for another serving. She dives into the food while the prince starts flipping through his new blueprints. The lady then curiously asks why he's been ordering so much ice-ons lately, because it's already dead of the winter, and if our hero wants to make his whiskey cool, he can simply put his drink outside. Seeing his wide-open order book, Prince Ronald realizes that she must have seen everything he has been ordering lately. So, he spills the beans that he's trying to make cheese, and to do that, he needs things to stay below